Greetings and happy Friday here from Guanacaste, Costa Rica. It's Matt Rosensteel thanking you first and foremost for joining my live Friday Costa Rica real estate broadcast. Today, we're going to be delving into a very interesting topic today, and specifically, I want to go over Costa Rica real estate data. There have been lots of people online claiming that they've aggregated data or that they've come up with really startling market trends. I've seen this on Facebook and other platforms. And really, I want to talk about those sources of data and help people answer one of the most important questions in life, which is telling the difference. We're going to switch over to my laptop. I was trying a new camera. Hopefully you can now hear me, and I'll just go straight over to my computer. Anyhow, the point is we want to discuss distinguishing between those sources of information, whether they're just trying to get you to reach out for a real estate inquiry or whether they have substantive information. We will also, of course, go over where you can find actual real Costa Rica real estate data, those comps that might be most interesting for you as a potential buyer, so that you've got an idea as to where you can actually find them. And yes, if you've ever heard someone say that there are no comps available, I want to absolutely work to dispel that myth and provide you with more information so that you are empowered to make the right decisions. If you are in the phase where you're looking at real estate and it's time to reach out to a broker, send me an email here to matt@costaricamat.com. You can also visit that website, costaricamat.com, and obtain my V-Book, which is a basic video manual of the Costa Rica real estate process, from your offers through closing, all kinds of related questions, etc. So there at costaricamat.com, you'll just hit the big V-Book blue button, and that should be pretty self-explanatory from there. Aside from that, folks, I did want, just a second, we'll get that back up there. Did want to mention I'm still working on getting more Friday field trip content. It has been an incredibly busy time for me, and we will be publishing more videos soon. I am stoked to see Pig76, one of my top viewers out there. Thanks so much for always joining on Fridays, Jay, and really appreciate you contributing. Burke, also a pleasure as well. Congratulations on your closing recently. Here's to you and Wanda, the cheers today. I greatly appreciate all of my clients, the people who actually contact me to help them buy and sell real estate in the areas where I can be of service in Guanacaste. If I haven't already told you before, those areas range from Playa Potrero down through Junquial, where I'm sitting right now. Potrero, Flamingo, it includes Tamarindo and Langosta, obviously. Grande, it will be a pleasure to help anyone as well in Avellanas, Negra, or any of the areas in between. So without further ado, I do want to start talking about Costa Rica real estate data, our topic today. Of course, anyone out there, you can feel free to contribute your shout outs, questions, comments, concerns, etc. You're more than welcome. Or post those in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. I did also, I was driving to work today, and the weather right now on June 20th just happens to be so spectacular that I kind of felt obligated to show everybody the last minute of my drive to work, just so that you can understand how lovely it is to be me. I'm really fortunate that I live in this particular area here in Playa Junquial. We've got this beautiful, gorgeous farmland all around us. And June brings these periods of absolutely spectacular weather where in between your rain showers, you get this kind of blue sky, puffy white cloud magic happening. Everything obviously is extremely green. There are people keeping track of the rainfall, but I am no longer one of those people. We've definitely had over a dozen inches, maybe 15 sort of inches of rain at this point. Here we're coming up to the Plaza Tierra Pacifica Commercial Center, where you could come and meet with me about your Costa Rica real estate needs. And here you can see our office, just so that you get an idea as well of sort of the context that is around here surrounding Costa Rica, Matt, every Friday. Without further ado, absolutely, you are right, Jerry. Yeah, pigs, green rolling hills, absolutely beautiful. So first and foremost, let's talk about some recent social media about Costa Rica real estate data. I also want to mention that I'm going to conclude today with a recent tragic story. Somebody who was looking for comps, who is buying a huge property in Playa Grande right now. They even pulled me aside and sort of suggested that they were wondering whether the price of their property was fair. These were people who have watched my channel and may be watching right now. And I wanted to explain that this comp information is something that I will be talking about right now on my channel. You see these posts on Facebook out there that people have graphs. Home prices are collapsing, or inventory is accumulating, or X percentage of recent real estate has had a price reduction, on and on. And it's actually very effective Facebook content because it's clear that in our market, there is not this kind of data that is readily available like you would have if there were an MLS that encompassed the full scope of real estate. If you delve a little deeper and look at some of these posts, you see people, first of all, asking, okay, what's your source of this data? I've seen responses that included all online sources. I've seen different responses to that question. There are people out there who are using sources like Proper Star. Some have said they've achieved this amazing aggregation that has happened, that they're the first ones to have Costa Rica data at this level. Well, first and foremost, I'm not saying that it is impossible that anybody has truly aggregated a market-wide look. But one of the things that I would start out by pointing out is that the difficulty of coming up with a technological solution that would actually glean reasonable data out of what is truly available would be an enormous, huge tech task. If I thought anyone out there had actually tackled the number of processes that it would take, first and foremost, to acquire the raw data that's out there, and second of all, to really only get real estate closings that matter for reports and trends, I'd be the first to say it, and really I'd be stoked that it could happen. But essentially, one reason that this probably has not yet happened is that even the National Registry, which is the one source of potentially providing raw data at a national level, that only has information from a very brief time period that is legitimate. Up until 2019, the information in the National Registry was by and large not representative of where real estate prices were actually closing. And that was due to tax laws that had not been passed. Regardless, though, the National Registry has only 6 years of data, and even still today, I have someone in our office who's trying to compile that data for specific projects, and the difficulty of getting it for a human being is tough because very often it's misrecorded. You have all kinds of situations where it's false information that hasn't actually been included, on and on and on. So the National Registry, where you would actually have Costa Rica's entire titled property, everything in the country registered, that is very difficult to actually use as a source of data. Frankly, I don't think people out there have been able to do it just yet. The available databases that we do have out there are sources of information that are all complete. All incomplete. Boy, that was the wrong way to end that sentence. These sources of information can include Coldwell Banker Costa Rica real estate reports. I saw somebody who had used the Coldwell Costa Rica information and come up with all kinds of market trends based on that report without really explaining where they got their data. But that's just one example. You do have MLS systems that have large chunks of the real estate that's being sold in any one region. Those MLSs do include, like I said, large chunks. And for example, you might see that even the majority of the formally listed real estate in Tamarindo is on an MLS. That source is still very much incomplete, and those sources have only existed for a few years as well. So they're not well springs of really good data, but rather just snapshots. So I could go on and on and on about the possible sources of information. Another one was ProperStar. If I'm not mistaken, that company was founded in 2018 or 19. It's a paid service, and trust me, very few, a small percentage of Costa Rica realtors are putting their listings into paid services. And another thing to consider in all of these data sources is that because they are all young and none of them are complete, they are all so fluidly changing. So the data itself that's being input into these different sources are, those data are evolving currently and actually maturing. For example, if you were to use the Omni MLS data that we do have here in Guanacaste, it's wonderful information, but the inventory looks like it's exploding. And oh my gosh, there's all this accumulating supply in the MLS. Well, actually what's happened is that the MLS is just 3 or 4 years old, and that we're finally seeing successful adoption among many agents, and they're finally putting in all of their listings. Or, you know, some of the inventory that was entered all in one blast by, let's say, a major brokerage 2 years ago when they joined, all of that inventory has now sat and matured and added to the aging of that database. So what I want to say is, let's start now analyzing how you can tell the difference between some of these posts out there that may just be absolute clickbait versus real sources of information. And first, the easiest thing to say is that anybody who is claiming to have the entire picture and to have definitive answers without really thoroughly explaining the background source of their information, I would say is not a source that I would say is extremely legitimate. If it emphasizes, oh, I know everything and this is the actual trend for the entirety of Guanacaste or the entirety of Costa Rica, and I have this data, you need to, essentially the quality of that source is entirely dependent upon really understanding the data that is being compiled to create those statements. Sometimes, honestly, the data that is compiled to create those statements might be really qualitative, very ethereal information. Like, for example, I think I do get a relatively good pulse on what's happening in Tamarindo by talking to the 6 or 7 people who are most intimately tied into the Tamarindo real estate market. But they're not going to disclose all of their closings and give their numbers. They're going to give general ideas as to where they are. On these online sources, if they're going to say, okay, the inventory is swelling, what I would want to see is, okay, geographically, where is this inventory swelling? What is the data source? How old is that database? Who is joining that database? And how are the inputs actually done in there? One of the other huge, massive problems that would affect all of these potential aggregators is that, yeah, if I'm a realtor, I have every single one of my listings on realtor.com, the Omni MLS. I have it syndicated everywhere that we can pay or beg for another listing to get my properties online. So if there are services that say that they're compiling multiple platforms out there, trust me, they are getting horrible numbers of duplicate properties that are just the same formally listed real estate plugged into a ton of different live platforms. So really, I think that anybody who's out there talking about real estate information, when you see that data out there, your first questions are about the source and really verifying how everything was compiled. You know, the big question being then, where can you find real data and what are the reliable sources out there? Now, what I want to emphasize is that I don't want anyone out there to be afraid of those sources that I have mentioned. There is extremely valuable information in the Coldwell Banker Costa Rica National Report. There is extremely valuable information in what different brokerages publish. You can also get on, realtor.com and other platforms and try and get some data there. But what is absolutely crucial is digesting that data with the grains of salt that those databases are imperfect, incomplete, and likely even manipulated in some circumstances. The paid platforms are not going to have everybody participating because they're not obligated. The unpaid platforms are going to have people participating who don't actually have those listings. They're going to be publishing false profiles out there. So any data extraction that just happens, I monitored encuentra24.com for 10 years and I pulled all of the listing data from there. Well, I can tell you the data on any website over those 10 years has had radical changes in the types of realtor who were participating, the number, the locations where they were actually interested in using that platform, on and on and on. And so when you're looking at people making online claims of data about the Costa Rica real estate market, yeah, you should be immediately qualifying like that, them in this way. In the end, the conclusion is going to be that because Costa Rica real estate data is the way it is, your realtor is going to be the source of information that really includes those relevant comps and those data points that you need to analyze pricing in your market. You could learn how to use the National Registry personally to replace that information. You could also conduct on the ground, surveys of people who have recently purchased properties and do a ton of that research trying to compile it yourself. Most people who really want the best advice try and find someone who has decades of experience in a particular area, and you should really grill that person on providing you with comps. To go back to this couple, for example, who may have not known that I work in Playa Grande when for years they were watching my channel and they decided not to call me to purchase a lot that is for sale in the neighborhood where they're renting in Playa Grande, where I currently have comp information. I just want to demonstrate one little thing really quick here. I'm not going to hold this on screen for long, but one of the things that actually I'm trying to share this here. When I'm working with clients to analyze neighborhoods, I compile this specific information as to what's being sold and what has actually recently closed in order to give them good information on the pricing and where things stand. That kind of information obviously is available to my clients, the ones who reach out to me by emailing matt@costaricamatt.com prior to going under contract to purchasing real estate. Your realtor and I should also qualify that statement by saying you don't necessarily need somebody who calls themselves a dyed-in-the-wool realtor to help you analyze the price of your purchase. Really, you need the best professional in that area who has frequently and recently guided other people through the process of buying real estate. In some communities, this may be a lawyer who actually just handles real estate, but is also guiding people on that, the more as an agent. You might also see that it's a hotel owner or a Costa Rican tour guide who actually has a ton of information about the community. But no matter what, this data, your information, is available. We have the National Registry if people need to do that investigation online. But then your realtor or your professional should have the experience where they can drive down the road and even tell you, this closed at that much, the house was that much, etc. And they have those data points to demonstrate to you. Not only do they have the on-the-ground experience that they know their market, but that they can support the decision you're going to make and the price that you're willing to pay for a property. Absolutely, you are 100% right. AI tech will eventually solve this problem. Pigs. I'm certain that there will be solutions to compiling all of this and putting it into data that people can understand. However, currently, really even with the available National Registry information, I think even AI would have a tough time parsing it, and clients are going to have a need for that on-the-ground, authentic intelligence, a different kind of AI for Costa Rica, since it has a very different real estate market. So anyhow, if you want to get that kind of information and that comp data anywhere where I can be of service to you, remember those areas, which do include Playa Grande, Flamingo Potrero, Tamarindo Langosta, Avellanas Negra, and Junquial. Don't hesitate to reach out to me by email. I do promise to upload more content soon where I'll be getting out on my field trips. Greatly appreciate you folks joining me today and every Friday. Hope you have a terrific weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on June 27th. Pura vida.